Imagine the most powerful city on earth, a city that has stood for over 1,000 years, a city that has survived plague, civil war, and siege after siege after siege, a city so magnificent, so wealthy, so strategically positioned that every empire on earth has tried to take it and failed, every single one, for 1,000 years. Now imagine it is the year 1453, and for the first time in its entire existence, this city is about to fall. Today we are going back, all the way back to the 1400s, to the final decades of Constantinople, the last great capital of the Roman Empire, a city that shaped the entire course of Western civilization. I'm going to show you what it looked like, what it felt like, what it smelled like. The streets, the churches, the markets, the walls, all of it, reconstructed. But here is the question that has haunted historians for centuries. How does a city that survived 1,000 years of attack fall in just 53 days? Stay with me, because the answer will completely change how you see the modern world. To understand the fall, you first have to understand what Constantinople was. Not just a city, a civilization. Founded in 330 AD by the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great, Constantinople sat at the precise meeting point of Europe and Asia, where the Bosphorus Strait connects the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. This was not an accident. Constantine chose this location with surgical precision. Control Constantinople, and you control the flow of every trade route between East and West. Silk from China, spices from India, grain from the Black Sea, gold from everywhere. At its height in the 6th century under Emperor Justinian, Constantinople was home to over 500,000 people, making it by far the largest city in the entire Western world. 500,000 people in the 500s AD. London at the same time had perhaps 15,000, Paris fewer than 20,000. Constantinople was not just ahead of its time, it was centuries ahead of its time. The Hippodrome alone could seat 100,000 spectators watching chariot races, gladiatorial displays, and political ceremonies that shaped the fate of empires. The Hagia Sophia, completed in 537 AD, was the largest building in the world for nearly 1,000 years. Its dome, floating above the nave on a ring of 40 windows, created such an illusion of weightlessness that Byzantine historians wrote that it appeared to be suspended from heaven by a golden chain. This was Constantinople at its peak, but by the time we arrive in the 1400s, something has changed dramatically. The year is 1400, and Constantinople is a ghost of what it once was. The population has collapsed from 500,000 to somewhere between 40 and 50,000 people. Think about what that means. Entire districts of the city, once packed with merchants, artisans, and citizens, are now empty, abandoned, overgrown with weeds and wildflowers growing between the cracked marble floors of what were once grand palaces. Travelers visiting Constantinople in the early 1400s described something almost surreal, a city within a city. The magnificent walls still stand, the Theodosian walls, triple-layered, over 12 meters high, stretching 6 kilometers across the peninsula, still the most formidable defensive fortification ever built in the ancient or medieval world. Inside those walls, farmland, actual farmland. Fields of wheat and vegetable gardens growing inside the city boundaries because there simply aren't enough people to fill the space anymore. How did it come to this? 3 catastrophes, one after another, each one more devastating than the last. First, the Black Death. In 1347, plague ships arriving from the Black Sea brought the bubonic plague to Constantinople. Within 2 years, the city lost nearly half its population. The streets that had once hummed with the energy of 500,000 souls fell silent. Second, the Fourth Crusade. In 1204, and this is one of history's great betrayals, Crusader armies that were supposed to be fighting for Christianity instead turned on Constantinople itself. They sacked the city for 3 days. They melted down priceless ancient artworks for coins. They stole relics. They burned libraries. The city never fully recovered. Third, and most devastating of all, the steady, relentless advance of the Ottoman Empire. By the early 1400s, Constantinople is not just a shrinking city, it is an island. Surrounded on all sides by Ottoman territory, the Byzantine Empire has been reduced to little more than the city itself and a handful of territories in Greece. Emperor Emmanuel II, one of the most remarkable rulers of the late Byzantine period, spent years traveling through Europe, Paris, London, Milan, literally begging the kings and queens of Western Europe to send military aid. He was received with sympathy everywhere he went. Magnificent banquets were held in his honor. Poets wrote verses about the tragedy of the Eastern Roman Empire, and nobody sent a single soldier. The politics of Western Europe, the rivalry between France and England, the internal conflicts of the Catholic Church, the exhaustion after decades of crusading made any meaningful response impossible. Constantinople was on its own. And in 1451, a new sultan took the Ottoman throne. His name was Mehmed II. He was 21 years old, and from the moment he took power, he had one singular obsession: Constantinople. Mehmed II was not like his predecessors. He was not content to simply pressure Constantinople into submission or extract tribute payments from its weakened emperors. He had studied the city obsessively. He had read every account of every previous siege. He spoke 6 languages. He read Greek and Latin military texts in the original. And he understood something that every previous attacker had missed. The walls could not be broken by conventional siege engines. They had proven that for 1,000 years. So Mehmed didn't look for a better battering ram. He invented an entirely new weapon. In the winter of 1452, Mehmed commissioned a Hungarian engineer named Urban to build him a cannon unlike anything the world had ever seen. Urban had actually approached Constantinople first, offering his services to Emperor Constantine XI. The Byzantines couldn't afford him. Mehmed paid him 4 times his asking price. The cannon Urban built, known to history simply as the Basilica, was 8 meters long. It fired stone cannonballs weighing over 600 kilograms. It could be heard from 40 kilometers away. It had never been attempted before. Nothing remotely like it had ever existed. Transporting the cannon to Constantinople required 60 oxen and 400 men just to move it across the terrain. When it fired, it had to cool for 3 hours before it could be loaded again. But when it hit the Theodosian walls that had stood for 1,000 years, it shook them like an earthquake. Now let's go inside the walls. It's April 1453, and the Ottoman army, somewhere between 80,000 and 100,000 strong, surrounds the city. Inside, Emperor Constantine has perhaps 7,000 defenders. Some sources say fewer. 7,000 against 100,000. The emperor knows the numbers. Everyone inside the city knows the numbers. On the night before the final assault, something remarkable happens. Emperor Constantine XI leads a procession through the streets of Constantinople. Every remaining citizen, Greek Orthodox Christians, Catholic Genoese merchants, Jewish traders, Armenian craftsmen working gold and silver in tiny workshops, everyone joins the procession. They carry icons, they sing hymns, they walk the full length of the Theodosian walls in the darkness, torches flickering. They know this is likely their last night. And then the emperor does something that historians have found extraordinarily moving. He goes to the Hagia Sophia, the great church that has stood at the heart of Constantinople for 900 years. He attends liturgy, he takes communion, and then he goes to the walls. Constantine XI Palaiologos, the last Roman emperor, spent his final hours walking the walls of his city, speaking to his soldiers, calling them by name. He knew what was coming. He went anyway. May 29th, 1453. Before dawn, Mehmed orders the final assault. For 53 days the walls have held, battered, cracked, repaired overnight by desperate defenders filling gaps with rubble and wooden barricades, but holding. On this final night, the Ottoman forces attack in waves. First, the irregular troops, the Bashibazuks, expendable soldiers sent to exhaust the defenders, then the Anatolian regulars, then finally the elite Janissaries, the most disciplined fighting force in the world.
The walls hold and hold and hold. And then a small gate, the Kirkoporta, a small postern gate on the northern section of the walls used for quick sorties by Byzantine troops during the fighting. Someone forgot to lock it. Ottoman soldiers find it, push through, and within minutes the cry goes up along the walls. The city is taken. The defenders, hearing the city has been breached from behind, begin to break. Panic spreads along the walls faster than any army could move. Constantine XI, the last Roman emperor, tears off his imperial regalia. He draws his sword and he charges into the oncoming